Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Neuro, and I won against Protoss. I know a lot of people are like, no way, dude, you made that up. It actually happened, and I wanted to go through 4 games that I played during a best of 7 series, and I wanted to talk through what I did and why I did it, so that maybe some of you can understand how to beat Protoss. So this is the VOD of game 1. This is an opponent who is around my level, a little bit lower MMR than me, for context, but not by much. Zerg versus Protoss is my lowest win rate matchup currently. And I went into this with a little bit of practice from Ray Rain and a little bit of feedback about what I was doing wrong. Ray Rain is a Protoss who's above my level, and whenever we play, he pretty much wins every time. And I was trying out a lot of new stuff on the new patch, like Infestors, and we talked some about what I was going for, my unit compositions and stuff, and he told me that one of my main weaknesses was not Overseer scouting, and I was like, okay, well, when do you do that? When do Zergs do that against you? He was just saying as soon as your layer's done. So I made it my goal for this series to just Overseer scout every game. That was my goal. Overseer scout every game. Even if I lose the best of 7, I'll still feel like I tried. I set a goal and I worked at it and I got good practice in. So that's kind of my mindset getting into this series. We also talked about making the Infestor, and what a poor choice that is against Protoss. It's just, compared to other options, it's very heavily underperforming. Fungling against Bio still feels good. Fungling against Ghost feels good. Fungling a Protoss army doesn't really feel like it does much for you, just because of how thick the ships and the armor and the shields and everything is of a Protoss unit. It's just, they've got like 300 health plus shields, and you fungal it and it's like a bug on the window shield, feels like. So what are the units that do create problems for Protoss? And Ray Rain was saying Ultras. Ultras are good right now. Really? Ultras have been historically a no-go against Protoss, but apparently now they are a good unit to make because Colossi are common and Ultras are good against them. High Templar are very common and Ultras are a hard counter to them. Spamming Zealots is very common and Ultras are good against them. And Carriers are pretty common and Ultras are a counter to them, because it takes Carriers so long to kill Ultras for their mass. So I'm opening with a pretty standard build here in game 1. Just trying to get my Ling speed, make sure I don't die to 2 Adepts. Getting a Roach Warren, about 340, just so I don't die to Gateway timings. For context, the last time I played against this opponent on ladder, I lost to a Gateway attack. He got a lot of Adept damage in, so I just wanted to make sure that doesn't happen this game. So I went for the earlier Roach Warren, and then I'll go for a lair whenever I have 100 gas. I see a Stalker, pressuring the Stalker a little bit. Droning meanwhile. In a series, one thing that you can think about for who's ahead or who's in a good spot is who's dictating the flow of the action. So for me to attack in the wall with the Lings, I was dictating the flow of the action and forcing my opponent to respond to me. Now my opponent has Adepts, so they're forcing me to respond. I'm on the back foot and I have to make some Ling Roach. So I'm trying to keep my bases injected, spreading creep as I'm able to. For some health context, this was a day where I didn't get a ton of practice leading up to it. I actually had to raid a whole bunch of WoW before playing in this series. So I was feeling tired, and for that reason, I didn't really put too much pressure on myself to perform super well. I just wanted to Overseer scout. And I think it is good to just check in, whether it's a show match or just ladder, to see how am I physically doing? Do I feel like I'm more rested than usual or less rested than usual? And how can I gauge my expectations accordingly? So I'm kind of just relaxingly trying to get my macro set up here. I think I have enough now that I won't die to Adepts, so I feel relatively safe. I lost some inject uptime on the natural there. That's a mistake. Another weakness in my play, I would say, is my ability to split off a small set of units to deal with the problem and not overreacting to it. This is an issue basically of what is the proportional defense you need for the attack rather than just grabbing everything at once. And an aspect that Zerg has to deal with is how do you divide your queens, not just your other ground units. I have 4 of my queens on a hotkey. It might have been better to keep one more off hotkey at the natural, because I would have better inject up timing here. So I feel that like this is a relatively even game so far. I didn't really take critical damage to the adepts. I didn't really deal damage in the wall. So it's the kind of match where nothing of note really has happened, it feels like. There was no defining moment, at least that I know of, where I either fell behind or got ahead. So I'm just trying to macro. I have 2 spotterlings out for vision you can see on the minimap that show 2 potential expansion locations. And I know they didn't expand there. I'm contesting the watchtower. Watchtowers are very strong. So if you're in this kind of even game, or really just at any point, contesting the watchtower is a strong move. It gives you a lot of vision on the map relative to just one unit being there. It's one of the reasons why using F2 can work against you. It's hard to assign an individual unit to stay there. If you do use F2, you can just send a probe or something as well. And that can do the trick. Okay, so I'm just running around with Roach. And I heard from Ray Rain that Roach Swarm Host is a good strategy to go for Zerg. So I'm making Roach Swarm Host. Not really that many Ravagers, and the reason is Ravagers are more so countered by Oracles. They're easier to focus down in general. And I do want to save more of my money to make these Swarm Hosts early. Because the earlier I start applying the Swarm Host pressure, the harder it is for the Protoss to get a whole bunch of supply. One of the old truths of Zerg versus Protoss has been Zerg has faster units that are faster to build, and Protoss has more expensive units that are slower to build but stronger. So for Zerg, we have to be trying to prevent them from getting to 200 supply before us most of the time. So I've got some Swarm Host pressure in the main. Really, I just want to make chaos and get value from every Locust wave if I can. So now I'm on a timer of injects, creep spread, and locusts. Those are the main timings that I want to hit, because that's going to allow me to consistently make units for myself as I'm trading out units, and also consistently deal damage to my opponent with the Swarm Host Nidus. And the Nidus is such an amazing complement to a pack of Swarm Hosts. I feel like you might as well just get it every time you play the Swarm Host style, because it increases the angles of attack by so many. Normally, if you just had Swarm Hosts, they would have to stay with your army to make sure they don't get killed, and they can pretty much only attack at the front bases. So you could attack their third, but you can't attack the main. It's too far for the Locust to travel. So just get vision. You can have Spotter Overlord or Ling, whatever. This Nidus I was able to get because that Ling was there. And then I just get out of the Nidus, throw out the Locust, get back in the Nidus, and then I do something with my army. And even if these trades that I take are kind of scuffed, it's not really a big deal because I have cheap units anyway, and I'm maxed pretty much. So for me to take even a slightly bad trade can be good for me because the Locusts are so cost efficient. I'm trading a cooldown for actual units. I'm able to kill buildings, like I'm knocking down my opponent's gateway count, which further slows their max out. And the theory behind this style where you go Roach Swarm Host is you just want to delay their max out as long as possible and consistently chip away at any base that you can. It makes it a really hard job for the Protoss. They need good vision around their bases to counter this, like observers. Here they're putting pressure on me with Prism and also DT. You can see that really extra emphasis to focus the spore from the enemy. So I have a changeling in the base now, and I can set up a Nidus from that. I'm sending my army stuff to defend this in the main. Also trying to look at the mini-map during this. Getting Adrenal as soon as my hive is done. Getting a hive in a reasonable time is another thing that I feel like was better for me during this series than my previous ladder against Protoss. I've been specifically trying to get to hive so I can get to Adrenal glands and Ultras as my main ones, and then sometimes Viper. Ray Rain did say that Vipers are pretty much better than Infestors at everything that they strive to do. So AoE against air, Parasitic Bomb from Vipers is better than Fungal. For focusing down units, Abduct is better than Neural Parasite. For just an anti-air kind of thing, Microbial Shroud, you might as well just Parasitic Bomb again. It's more of a threat to the Protoss army. Vipers can also gain energy faster by using Consume. Vipers also fly, which is nice. High Templar are going to own a lot of your Viper stuff, but Ultras are such a hard counter that if you have an Ultra Viper, High Templar are pretty scared on the map. So here the Ravager stuff is basically broken his position. He's squished back onto 3 bases now. And I killed the main, so he's pretty much dead. Or most of the stuff in the main. So this was basically match 1 playing against Adepts. I go for Roach Swarm Host. I have an Ultra follow-up. Just consistently trying to take fights with Biles and Lings and Locusts. And that's game 1. I didn't really plan to play Stormhost every game, but I heard that it was good on this map, just because the map is pretty large, so there are lots of areas they have to cover, and a lot of the bases are relatively open, meaning that it's easier to find a place to put a Nidus and then get the Locust there. Some other maps, like, it's not Golden Wall, Golden Aura, Golden something. That map, you can really turtle up on 4 to 5 bases if you're the defending player. My opponent has the heart of a champion. They're fighting it out, even though they're very behind. Very valiant and admirable. Got more Stormhosts coming out of the Nidus. Throw the Locusts, and we're good. Alright, that's game 1. Game 1 feeling pretty decent. That was also my map pick, I think. So ideally you win your map picks, and then if you can win on their map picks as well, that's even better. So map 2, this was the Protoss map choice. This is the map I just mentioned as being really good for turtling. So how will we break the turtle play? What is the move here? I'm going to open hatch first again. I was thinking of mainly doing that just because it is a large map, and the chance of them wanting to commit to a cheese is pretty low, just because I'm far. I send my drone out at 145, and if I don't see a probe by 270 minerals, I'll send the drone back to build the natural. There are builds where they send the probe early enough to block a hatch first if you take it at 16. There are a few different ways to deal with it as Zerg. My preferred method is just send your drone that you would send to the natural, send it directly toward the third at 145 minerals, and then turn it back if at 270 you don't see a probe. If the probe is there, you can just let that drone continue to the third base area and build a hatch when it gets there at 16, and then your queens still time out together. So it's a pretty comfy response to the probe block. Getting the drones back to work. Whenever the probe is trying to push your workers off mining, I like to just send one drone to attack it until they stop and leave me alone. They can cause your drones to bounce between the different patches in a way that is not really ideal. Just cycling through base cameras, getting 2 queens, 4 lings. Sent the drone to attack the probe just to pull my opponent's attention. Force them to respond to something. And now I see Gateway being chronoed and Warp Gate getting chronoed at the same time. Ground aggression, maybe? We'll see. There are some all-in builds where they could have 5 to 6 to 7 gateways and they just attack with that. Kind of an older style, not really the most common. I think Harstrom or someone made a guide on this recently. So I'm making another queen in the main. I pulled my queen in the main down to the natural. Whenever the first inject falls, I rally those 3 larvae from that directly into the Vespine Geyser. I also build an Overlord at 33 and an Overlord at 36. 33 Overlord, 3 more drones, 36 Overlord. Put the creep tumor a little bit further back so the adept didn't kill it. Trying to peek at the wall. There was a stalker that shot the Overlord. Want to be careful of that. Okay, the adept is leaving. And it gets recalled. So I made 1 spore in the main and I have 2 queens at the natural. So I'm safe against the first oracle. 3rd base is done. Feeling good. Sending a ling to each watchtower. And then I have 2 lings on the army key. Want to get a lair. Because I'm in an Overseer Scout state of mind, Protoss can do all kinds of different stuff. Overseer Scouting allows you to see which of that stuff they're going for this time. Triple Adept on the map. There's not a 3rd yet, but there is a pylon at a potential 3rd base area. Lings go here. Again, this is all good stuff in the sense that my opponent is responding to me. I just sent in 2 lings and I got the response of a lot of different units, and I saw many Protoss things. But now it's my opponent's turn to strike at me, and I have no lings. So this is going to be a bit of a mess. Okay, I was going to move those to a different base or get them away from the adepts, but my opponent decided not to commit. Misclicked that a little bit. More adepts on the way, so I just want to make some roachling to hopefully not die to this. And when my lair is done, I want to get roach speed as soon as possible. Just because if they commit really hard to adept, I want to make sure my roaches can actually chase them. Slow roaches trying to chase adepts it's not fun to watch. If you're the Zerg, if you're the Protoss, you feel like a god. You can't catch me, I'll just go to a different base. Or I'll go between the bases. The lair is done, we Overseer Scout. This match is a moral victory. Even if I lose. Even if we lose, we scouted, and that was the weakness of my ZvP. The 2 main weaknesses, lack of scouting, and then building shitty units. It's the other one. On the good units list, at least for the current meta and patch, we have Zergling, Roach, Ravager, Ultralisk, Viper, Swarmhost, Queen, Corruptor, Baneling. Baneling is still a good unit even after the nerf. On the less good unit list, we have the Infestor, the Hydralisk, the Lurker, the Broodlord. We hope for the use and the success of these units in the future. but it is not this day. All right. So I Overseer scouted, and I see that it's a Robo Bay play. I'm not sure if I actually clicked the Overseer as I scouted it. I still have adepts in my base. I may go back to it in a minute. Queens almost get it. So I'm gradually getting 3-base saturation here. I have pretty much 3-base saturation. Not bad. Not bad. But their attack wasn't a full commitment. They didn't go for an adept all-in. Oh yeah, the Mutalisk is not really seen as the best right now. Mainly that's because mass stalker on 3 to 4 base is very common. Like mass blink stalker. So as soon as you go for Mutaplay, they can kind of... Ouch, I remember that. Well, I saw Robo Bay with my Overseer Scout, and I thought Colossus, so I wasn't really thinking about Disruptors when I went up that hill. And then when the Nova went out, it was just like, yeah, that's a good first reveal of the Disruptor for my opponent. Nice, the Queen Roach killed the Prism. I hotkeyed 4 Roaches with the Queen group, just to give them some protection against 4 Zealots if they were on the Prism. Now I have Roachling Ravager running around the map. And I'm going for a quick Hive and 0 Swarm Host this time. So that's part of the pivot and information that I got from the Overseer Scout. In the previous game, I saw Gateways, and I didn't really see Robotech, heavy Robotech. So I went for Roach Swarm Host. And in this game, because I saw Robo Bay, I'm going for Fast Hive for Viper. And just using like Roachling Ravager as my ground army. We have Adrenal going on the Evo. And I have 4 Vipers out. Woo. 4 Vipers. These are very strong. Apparently very strong units. Using Consume on Extractor, whatever. One of the buffs to Viper was that they don't take as much health from buildings for the energy they gain, which is good. Thanks, Vipers, for not hurting our base as much. Appreciate you. Very cool. Roachling Ravager. I don't really want to commit with everything in one spot because that gives the Disruptors lots of value for their AoE. I want to try to be moving around, utilizing my faster movement speed than my opponent, and taking a fight when they're not really ready for it. So I'm attacking and taking a 5th base at the same time here. There's a Zealot. That wasn't the best, but that also could have been worse. I want to get maxed. Boom. Ultra Cavern. Now I have a second Evo of upgrades going. So Evos are working. Ultra Tech is going. I wasn't able to commit to an attack yet with my Vipers and stuff, but I did take a base during it, and I'm dropping some new tech. Corrosive Bile takes out an Observer. Excellent. Mass Zealot here. The funny thing about Disruptors is the Nova can't go through buildings. So, yeah, they couldn't really do anything about me attacking there. They don't want to run around the backside because then it's hard to protect their army. So Roachling Ravager just kind of being a nuisance. I broke their wall. Didn't really get probe damage, but... Okay, this is called the Random Zergling Yeet. I just took all the Lings in my army, and I just sent them into their natural. On a shift rally command. And we're in. This is so common. Protoss will leave the door open. They assume you won't go for it. So now I'm trying to go at the front with the Roach Ravager. Which really is just one Ravager, so it's mainly just a Roach Viper. And the Ling run by is still getting damage, and I'm not even looking at it. That's another really key thing about having good multitasking is know when you don't need to stare at your units and just let them do their thing. Because those Lings being in the base, they were messing up stuff the entire time. Maybe it wasn't the most optimal stuff, but it was damage and it was constant while I went back and injected my bases. So it was worth me getting the injects off and missing a couple seconds of Ling Micro. Abducting High Templar. That's something. Okay, sent the Vipers back. And trading out Roachling, keeping Vipers alive is kind of similar to Bioterran. Trading out the mineral units and then saving the Medivacs. Similar. You save your gas caster unit. Can we save the Ultra Cavern? I don't have enough energy to abduct. Oops. We save the Ultra Cavern. Alright, well I have Ultras now. And Ultra upgrades are going. Are the Queens going to the main to transfuse the Ultra Cavern? Let's go. Sending the Roachling Ultra Ravager down the middle. I need to get energy on the Vipers. They're super out of mana. Or psionic energy. Whatever you call Resource 2. Resource 1, health. Resource 2, some magical or scientific force that allows you to smartly do things. Okay, the Ultra push wins. Yeah, we got the damage in earlier on with the Ling run by, so they were definitely boo-boo ouch time situation. And it was Disruptor and not Colossus. And there also wasn't really much of an immortal count, so the Ultras really did work. I'll skip to the next game. All right, this game, I actually went for a 12 pull here. So even though the drone is getting blocked, I already had something I was committed to. And I just made 6 Lings. I don't know why, I just did that. I was like, yeah, I'm in a drone after that. I just want to be annoying and get a reaction out. That was basically my plan. I wanted to stress out my opponent and just drone into a normal game. So maybe not the most optimal. Maybe you're supposed to send 8 or 10, but that's what I did. You can argue in the comments if you think it was a silly build. There's a Zealot being made. We're forcing Micro out of our opponent. And then going back home. Inject. Oh my gosh, probes showed up at the natural. This was super worth it. We got a big reaction like we were doing a 12 pool and going all in. When really this was a fairly minimal investment. I'm taking my 3rd here. I don't think this is technically what I should have done. I think I should be spending the inject into drones first. Because if you look at my supply, this is scuffed. I haven't practiced 12 pull as much as the other builds, so you can see here, my money and supply is just scuffed. We've created a scuffed game by playing aggressive in a way that I don't practice as much. I'm trying to get Ling speed up, first 100 gas. I have 2 Queens now. So I kind of have the tools that you would normally have. It's not exactly the same. I think he should have taken that shade. That would have been annoying for me to defend. But he didn't know how many Lings I had. It could have been a cheese with earlier gas. And if he lost both of them instantly, he could be in trouble. Okay. So I forgot to take Ling speed in the chaos. So this is a very late Ling speed. Pretty sloppy start for me. See what happens when you do a different build than your main build. My main builds against Protoss would be hatch gas pool, get Ling speed, pull off gas, that's 1. Or 16 pool, 17 hatch, and just make 4 to 6 Lings early. That's a build that I'll go for if I'm against a known cannon rusher. Just because I can get out Roach stuff way earlier. I can get Lair and Nidus earlier. And I'm not as dependent on having a good time at my natural. If I lose my natural, it's fine. Been working in the main for a while anyway. Just peeking at the natural with the Overlord. Ling speed is mostly done. 3rd base is done. Return the minerals, make a spool. Getting a lair. I wanted to send out Lings for vision and then I was attacked. So I think I'm going to go defend with them instead. I do have a Ling at each expansion. That's good. Good placement of the Adept. They put it between the patches. You can't see it because I'm blocking it. Okay, get a Spore here. Lost a drone. Could have microed better, but we'll just chalk it up to being under-rested for this show match. I woke up at 9 a.m. No, 8:50 actually this morning. Because I did Ice Crown Citadel 10 in WoW. So I did Ice Crown Citadel 10-man and then 25-man. And then I had a break and then the show match. With maybe 2 warm-up games that I got. I felt like I was doing pretty well. I did wake up earlier on Friday, so the day before this show match as well, just to kind of get used to waking up early, so it wouldn't be as much of a shock to my body. But I think the physical aspect of your readiness to play competitive esport games is not talked about enough relative to how important it is. For me, how much I slept has a huge bearing on how well I play. But no one really talks about that. They just talk about imbalance and stuff. But I can definitely feel it. For the same opponents, if I'm well rested, I can feel like I have a good chance to win. And if I'm under rested, they're going to win. Okay, so we got Roach upgrade going. I think I went Roach speed range attack, just as I don't know what my opponent is doing, and this can fight stuff. That was basically my thought process there. I think I wanted to go Swarm Host this game again because this map is very short rush, and it has speed zones on it. So short rush means that I can pretty much throw the Locust from the middle of the map. It'll hit my opponent. I think Swarm Host is pretty good against Protoss regardless of whether it's a big map or a small map. At least that's how it feels to me. The main difference is how Nidus dependent is your Swarm Host group. Because on a short rush map like this where your opponent is close to you, the Nidus doesn't matter as much because you can just walk to the middle of the map and throw them. But for a map like Equilibrium, which we saw game before last, the opponent's kind of far. So I couldn't just walk to mid-map and throw Locusts and get to them. My Roachling is going to contest the space. This is the kind of fight where I didn't really know if it was going to be good for the Roaches or not. And then as I got in there, I was like, yeah, this isn't really good for them. Stalkers are being very efficient here. This is fine, though. They weren't super critical units. It's giving me space in my base anyway. So for me to be up in my opponent's face, they're responding to me with their units playing defensively. And that means my bases are pretty chillin'. Fourth base is going. Okay, I have Swarm Host now. Spreading the creep. So I know the Stalkers and Oracle are going around clearing creep. I don't really care. Like, I'm not going to chase them. I don't have an army that can fight them off creep anyway right now. So I'm just keeping my Roachling at home. They're just going to defend stuff for now. And I'm going to let the Swarm Host do the work. The Swarm Host is now the main attacking unit for me. They will go and harass. Triple Forge. Oh, when I saw that, I was like, I think this is going to be good. It's a very long-term choice for Protoss. It doesn't really shine until they have 3-3. If they have 3-3-3, they're really strong. But that's very expensive, and it takes a while to get there. So the Roach Swarm Host thing, I can attack pretty early. My goal here is to get consistent damage with every Locust wave now. Same idea as before. And I want to keep their supply down. So by the time they have 3-3-3, they won't have 200. My queens are trying to really aggressively spread creep across the map. That also makes it easier for me to set up new Nidus networks. Sending Lings to attack the space now. Taking bases, setting that up. Send the Locust out, get back in the Nidus. Standard safety protocols. Another thing too that I just thought of is it's good to have lots of different Nidus exits on the map, just in case your main entrance does get sniped. If all entrances and exits are killed at any given point, any units that were underground at the time are instantly killed, because I guess the lore is that they got stuck and they can't get out. So even if you don't actually set up a Nidus attack from an exit point, having another exit point is still good. It insulates you against, say, a pack of 8 DTs killing your Nidus with everything in it. That would be very sad. We have a good, I think it's 12 to 14 swarm hosts. I didn't see the exact number. But I'm spreading creep here. The Roachling Overseer is doing stuff. Roachling really goes a long way against Protoss ground. Just a whole bunch of Roachling is a pretty big problem, regardless of what kind of Protoss army type you have. Roachling are pushing these rocks here. Push those rocks. More DTs being made. Sending the Locusts. DTs are not very good frontliner units if you can see them. Like you'd prefer to have Archons instead. So the Locusts do very well against them. And then I just outnumber my opponent's army here, at least while the Locusts are alive. And then once the Locusts are gone, I was going to back up, but it looked like it was still good for me. To me, it feels like Stalkers have a slight edge against Roaches, but Roaches fighting head-to-head with them, it's not that bad. It's slightly worse for you, but the Roach was cheaper to make, so you don't really feel too bad about it. Queens are injecting everything. Getting Ultra Tech once again. I think it's hard for Protoss here if they don't get... Yeah, they kind of want to get Colossi to deal with the Locusts and Lings, but then they're not going to be doing as well against Ultras. I think that's why Ultras are strong. The response to the Roach and the Swarm Host and whatnot leads them to not do the best against the Ultralisk. I just split off 32 Lings for a secondary attack group. I think I just send them in normal, no Banes, just regular Lings. They're just normal Lings. We force a recall. That's great. I'm just sending the Lings into the natural now, and I'm going to attack somewhere else. And Nidus. Oh, the wall is open again. Yeah, Zergs, you should check the Protoss wall often. Yeah. So that's game 3. I opened with a very scuffed 12 pool build because I haven't really practiced that too much. And it did get a reaction. I feel like it ended up being an even game because I messed up my supply and whatnot. And this is the final game. And I'm opening 16 pool this time. 16 pool is like a safe, cautious choice. It's not as greedy as Hatch First. Hatch First is still technically safe, but it's a lot harder to deal with cannons and stuff. And Proxy 4-Gate Zealot. Who am I playing? I'm playing someone named Boomhauer from Team Gosu. Solid Protoss. I don't think he's ever BM'd me. Well-mannered gamer. Respect. And thanks for showing up for the show match. They have their honor. Indeed. So I'm making 4 Lings to push the probe away. Getting a Queen. Taking a Gas. Making an Overlord. Trying to kick some ass. Second Overlord moving forward a bit. Honorable Gaming Pog True. That is a big, very true time. There's a zealot. So, this is great. When my lings get to their base, actually, no, the Overlord tells me. This was already super worth it. I think they thought I went for a 12 pool again. And that's the stress of... I 12 pooled the last game, so I showed that I was very capable of 12 pooling. And 16 pool, it's only 4 supply off. And it is still a pool first, so it's kind of hard to read the difference. You really have to pay attention to how much of it is built and what the game time is when you scout it. So I think my opponent here was like, oh no, he's 12 pooling me again. So pulling those probes down and moving the zealot around was very good for me. Very, very good. So I decided to go for a Ling Bane attack. Because there's a zealot in the wall. Zealots are light units, which means Banes deal bonus damage to them. What I don't want to Bane bust into is a Stalker in the wall with an Oracle behind. That's like the easiest defense for Protoss. It's just not economical for Banes to bust through a Stalker. You technically can, but it's expensive. So you don't feel good about it. Busting through an Adept or a Zealot is much easier. So here I decide to attack the Adept, even though it's a bad trade for me, because I wanted to keep the Adept away from my Bane nest. I did not want them to see that I have a Bane nest there. Because that's definitely different from if I pulled off gas and I was just getting more drones. I don't know if they saw my gas, but that would be another way they could read that I might be going for a Baneling bust. Overlord is flying into the main here. Trying to get a read on the situation. Also distracting from the Bane bust. It's very good if you can get them to send their Stalker after your Overlord and then bust through a squishier light unit, which ended up working here. They have the Zealot in the wall. The Stalker is shooting the Overlord. And the Banes are going in. I think I go for the 2 pylons. Yeah. I don't really know what the best micro protocol would have been there. This is fine. Like, I got in. I delayed a lot of their stuff. I'm getting damage. I'm forcing a reaction, and I'm droning. Bases are injected, which is good. Made some more lings. I'm not quite sure why. If those were drones, that would have been a better play for me, I think. And now there's another Void Ray being made. So that'll be 2 Void Rays. Lings are working on this pylon. It's good. Killing Cybercore is a nice delay. Very smart that he's already rebuilding a Cybercore, though. So for me to kill this is less impactful since he already started making one. Smart. Smart Protoss. I'm now mining through the patches down and right of my 3rd base, so I can take that 4th base. I have 3 base mineral saturation now, which is cool. I should have taken my 4th base there, but I did not. Taking a 5-minute 4th base is pretty good. Because this was an aggressive game from me, taking it at like 5:30 or 6 minutes would be fine. This is late. I should have taken it before the macro hatch. But it's fine. Nice of that Overlord to spot those Adepts. I was able to catch them as a result. Okay, the Void Rays are harassing my main. The Adepts are harassing my natural. Trying to clean up both. Send the Queens over. The macro hatch does absorb this Void Ray damage from me at least. And I do get the cancel. So that's kind of cool. So this is game 4 of the series. And we're up 3-0. That was also part of the reason why I went for a Bane Nest. I felt like I could afford to go for an aggressive attack even if it didn't work and we lost. It's still something that makes me dangerous. Dangerous Zerg. Could macro, could all in you. One amazing series that just came to mind was Soul Key versus Innovation. Anyone remember that? Innovation was the heavy favorite. Heavy favorite. And Soul Key, oh my gosh, he just cheesed him every game. Super hard. And it worked. After being down 0-3, he did 4 all-ins. All right, got my Roach speed, Bane speed, so I can make a decent bit of ground stuff. Getting +2 melee here, so my Banes are going to slap. They did nerf Baneling damage to where they no longer one-shot probes with +2 melee. They also nerfed Baneling health, but the Baneling is still a good unit, despite all that. Thanks, Banelings. Good job. Keep it up. My 4th base is almost done. Man, that should have been done so long ago. That was a big mistake for me this game. You can also just take a 4th and a 5th at the same time and kind of count that as your macro hatch. I think having a macro hatch in addition to a 4th and a 5th is even better. Who would have realized that making more stuff was good in RTS? How could you have possibly known this? All right, now we're going to go for a Baneling Scout. Overlord is also getting a Scout. All right, going for the gold base. Since I mine through and I have that 4th and the gold is a logical 5th for me. Zealot is contesting the Watchtower. The middle of this map is so wonky to fight in because of that Watchtower spot. Overseers are OP, keep that note. Yeah, the main reason that it's so crucial in this matchup especially is because the ways that Protoss can play are so different from each other. The ways that Terran can play, really the only weird different style is Battlecruiser. Aside from that, it's just maybe they have more bio stuff or maybe they have more mech stuff. They could have a faster or a slower army, but it feels like scouting matters less than against Protoss, who could play Colossi with force fields and stalkers. They could play disruptors. They could play Charge Lot Archon Immortal. They could play carriers. They could play DTs. They could just do a normal gateway all-in. They could go Mass Oracle, Mass Blink Stalker. They could do a charge all-in. They could cannon the shit out of you. Protoss can do so many things. Getting a base. Nice bit of Baneling damage here. It is hard to kill the Protoss, though, fully, whenever they have 4 bases in static defense like this. So I am killing probes, but that is also allowing them to sit on 4 bases for longer. So I'm not really ending the game with the Baneling Harass. I'm just potentially expanding my lead. Okay, so he's moving out now. I have a ton of lings, which is good in one sense, but in another sense it means Archons and stuff are going to hurt. It's going to be hard for me to deal with. Zealots are also tough. So I'm kind of in that in-between period where I don't quite have Ultras yet. So these Archons hurt. Ravagers are good. The 6 range makes them feel really good against Archons. And even against Storm. Just because they stand so far back. All right, so we got our 4th base here. Not really defended, but there was an attempt. Hillscream, thank you for sponsoring this segment. We are going over the show match VOD from yesterday, kind of breaking down what my game plan was in ZvP, because I feel like I played pretty different from how I have been on ladder recently. Notably, we cut Infestor entirely from the roster. No Infestors are being made at all in this series. No Hydras being made in this series as well. I just noticed that. I didn't build a Hydra Den in any of the 4 games. Wow. Hydras just feel bad to make right now. They did lower the research time for Hydra range and Hydra speed, but that doesn't really matter whenever Protoss has a shitload of adepts early on anyway. So do you really want to go for a Hydra timing when they have 15 adepts? Not really. And then in the late game, you don't want a Hydra either because of Storm and Colossi and Disruptors and Carriers. So Hydras used to be, I described them like back in Heart of the Swarm as the center unit of Zerg versus Protoss, where you could do all kinds of different stuff as long as you had Hydras in your mixture in the mid game. Whereas now it kind of feels like that's one of the worst units to make, because almost every Protoss style beats it. Lurkers are relatively better, but you have to make Hydras to get the Lurkers, so it's not the most optimal. So overall here, we're just kind of boxing now. My opponent's on 4 bases, I'm on 5 bases, and they're trying to kill me because they have pretty much a max out. I go for another random Zergling Yeet here. My opponent's doing a pretty good job of defending everywhere, so that was definitely not a good attack from me. But I did once again control the flow of the match. I have 1 safety ultra in the main to keep us safe from Zealot Warpins. We have the best main in the world because of the safety ultra. Do you find your lunch table accosted by angry zealots and archons and Dark Templar? Maybe you should invite a safety ultra to sit at the lunch table with you. They'll keep away those bullies. I didn't know your older brother was an Ultralisk. Yep. Yeah, so this is a very scrappy game. Definitely the closest game of any in the series. We're both pretty hurt here. I've taken a lot of damage. I lost my 4th. I've lost a lot of my drones. I lost a bunch of my queens. A lot of my attacks didn't work. It is hard to do run by on this map because of the mineral walls. One thing I could experiment with is trying to sneakily mine through them. Even just sending 2 drones at one of them, you could open it up potentially. And even if you didn't, you could also like scout a run by or something, which could be valuable. Seems like it might be worth it to try on this map anyway. If they're assuming that you're not attacking them from that side, you could surprise them. So another big committed attack here, but the recall makes it a partial commit. Going for more Nidus pressure in the main. Sending in changelings to try to get more Nidus pressure. We'll see what we can get. Lings and an ultra got out. That's a bit of damage. Nothing crazy, but we did introduce chaos and basically force the flow of the matchup. Saying, no, you respond to me because I have a Nidus in your base. We still have that safety ultra up there. Ultra's pushing in at the front. I do have Banes. The nerf to Banes also makes them worse against Storm. More likely that Storm will kill them before the Banes connect with their target. Ultras and Lings running around. And I still need to keep tabs on when my opponent takes a 5th. And I've lost in this situation many times where I feel like I've done tons of work getting harass damage in against Protoss, but then they still end up with a max out and kill me. So I'm trying to make sure that I maintain my infrastructure, and if my attacks don't work, I can still live. All right, I know they still don't have that upper base because of the run by. Trying to break rocks and open up the map. After trying out Ultras and Broods on the new patch, Ultras feel way better than Broodlords. Ultras are now 25 minerals cheaper. Nothing else about the unit changed from the previous patch, which did make Ultras smaller, which is also a buff to them. So Ultras are now smaller and cheaper than before. Wing Ultra getting lots of damage here. But a key Zealot run by. Just 3 Zealots, but so much damage. Once they have +3. Ultra versus the Stalker line, the Queens. Queens fighting Zealots. It's not good for the Queens. It just takes Queens so long to kill Zealots. Admittedly, this game I had better melee attack than ranged. I have +3 melee and I think +1 ranged. So not the best for the Queens. Once again, relentlessly checking my opponent's 5th base locations. I don't know how I didn't see that gateway and pylon there, but apparently I did not. I guess I was just so focused on attacking them, I didn't just check to the side of my base. I'm more committed to the bottom right side of the map, though. But yeah, that's one of the things that fell off this game, is my opponent killed some of my queens, and I didn't really get back to creep. So right now, I would have liked to see me fix my creep, like just get the wave going again. My queens worked together to defend a Zealot attack, and they didn't get back to work. They're kind of just lazy at the natural now. We beat the Zealots! Yay! What should we do now? I don't know. Tea? Okay. So they're having tea. They're having a nice time. Aha! Now they're mining through here. Want to take a base. Something I didn't do this game, but is always cool to see, is getting burrow. And then just burrow 1 Ling of the future bases. It's a major pain for Protoss. You can get multiple minute delays on their bases with burrow. So I didn't get it, but if I'm Twitch chat backseating myself, I will say, Neuro, wouldn't it be really cool if you got burrow? Like, look at your money right now, Neuro. Burrow. You have enough money right now. Burrow. Burrow. Overlord speed, burrow. I did get overlord speed. Burrow. Look at that. Burrow. 100, 100. 100 minerals, 100 gas. Burrow. I have enough money almost all the time. And that would make me a lot more annoying on the map. Remind me. Neuro. Burrow. Thank you. Very small investment, but then it has a global effect to all current and future Zerg units, which is very strong. Yeah, Burrow's so strong. Why do I not get that? I have 9 ultras. That's cool. Maybe even 10. On this map, do you find the bottom the best way to expand? Yeah, the reason for that is it has a greater concentration of bases for you. If I were to go to the opposite direction, that would give me access to 1 rich Vespine geyser. But the other way, I get a gold. And minerals at the 4th are actually more crucial than gas usually. Because in virtually every game, I'm saturating my fourth base for minerals before gas. And that base is too far to take as a third. So you can't really capitalize on the rich Vespine. But having a gold fourth or fifth is way better. At least that's how it seems to me. Two ultras doing a run by and denying this base area. If you don't tech burrow, do lurkers derp out? Lurkers know burrow as part of their nature. It's part of their kit. They can research burrow speed, where they burrow in faster. Kind of like the drilling claws for mines. But yes, they know. They know how to burrow. Yeah, we eventually got him there. The Viper was the icing on the cake. So my overall game flow, just to kind of go through the action, was get my 3-base setup. How I got there could have been hatch first. It could have been pool first. It could have been a main bust. The opening build doesn't matter, but you get to 3-base saturation. You make Roach Ling to not die and go for an Overseer Scout. And then, depending on what tech they go for, I either go Roach Swarm Host, which is 1, or I go Roachling Ravager is another. And then eventually I get into Ultras pretty much every time. And I have Banes in the mix. So no Hydra, no Infestor. I didn't really make Spire. I think I had a Spire in the last game, but I didn't really make that many Spire units. It wasn't a major part of the plan. A cool thing about Ultra is it's already a prepared counter to air, because carriers, especially in small numbers, really suck at clearing out Ultras. So yeah, I like the Ultra late game. Big shout out to Ray Rain for helping me with practice in my ZvP, pointing out that Overseer Scouting is very crucial for this matchup. Very crucial. And Ultra Viper as Hive Tech units and Adrenalings. Those are very good. Infestors, it's not the best right now. If you want to make them and have fun, absolutely knock yourself out. Do burrowed Neuro plays. They're very funny when they work. But for reliable, tradable units, Ultras and Vipers are very good. Thank you. And I hope you enjoyed this breakdown of the series. Brong.